This is HFY Vanguard. When humanity rises, the galaxy takes notice. And this rise starts here. Ronan Todd cursed under his breath as the battered landing gear of his freighter screeched against the docking platform of Omega-7. The entire ship shuddered, as though the ancient space station had swallowed it whole metal, protesting against metal. He gripped the worn throttle and muttered, "Easy, baby. Just hold together a little longer." Omega-7 loomed outside the viewport, a mechanical behemoth suspended in the void like some monstrous spider clinging to the dark between stars. Its crooked arms extended in all directions, 8 massive docking spires wrapped in a web of neon corridors and industrial scaffolding. Each arm pulsed with artificial light, housing markets where the galaxy's most notorious smugglers, pirates, and merchants bartered life's secrets and weapons. To Ronan, it was the perfect place to unload stolen goods, and his cargo, this time tucked inside a secure case strapped to his hip, was unlike anything he had ever risked his neck for. The comm crackled with a distorted metallic voice. "Docking fee 800 credits, cash only." "Highway robbery?" Ronan growled, fingers already inputting the transfer. His ship's account drained itself reluctantly. The voice didn't care. "Payment received. Welcome to Omega-7. Try not to die." The airlock hissed open, spilling stale, recycled air into the cabin. The scent of rust, unwashed bodies, and fried synth meat wafted inside. Ronan tugged on his leather jacket, its seams patched from years of running across unfriendly borders, and patted the case at his hip. Within lay a crystalline sphere, deceptively ordinary-looking, yet dangerous enough that sent him. Security forces had nearly killed him for it. 3 months of planning a near-death escape and burned contacts, all for a prize whose true worth only whispered itself in black market circles. He stepped onto the docking bridge, boots clanging against the grating. The noise of Omega-7 crashed over him like a tidal wave. Voices shouted in dozens of languages, some guttural, others musical. A vendor hawked steaming trays of food that smelled like burning rubber. A pair of cybernetically modified twins advertised weapons they probably hadn't cleaned since the last war. A merchant with too many eyes waved him toward a display of fake Earth antiques, baseball bats, snow globes, and cheap Mona Lisa prints. Ronan kept his stride steady, ignoring all of them. He had been to Omega-7 before, but never to Section 8. That particular wing was whispered about even among smugglers, the place where contraband so rare it was practically myth changed hands. It was also the place where careless humans wound up dissected in alleyways. He adjusted the strap of his case and scanned the crowd. His contact had arranged to meet him at the Broken Airlock, a dive bar deep inside Section 8, infamous for brawls that ended in vaporized ceilings. He was early, 30 minutes, maybe more. Enough time to scout an escape route, identify choke points, and memorize exits. Ronan never trusted anyone in places like this, especially not buyers. He took a turn down a narrower corridor, neon lights flickering overhead. A tentacled food vendor hissed from behind his stall. Fresh human, very tender, very fresh. Ronan grimaced, praying they meant synthetic meat. He quickened his pace. Better not to ask questions in Section 8. The marketplace widened suddenly, spilling into a chaotic bazaar of stalls stacked on top of each other, smoke rising from fires that probably weren't legal in a pressurized station. Music pounded from the hidden speakers, syncopated rhythms designed to unsettle off-worlders. He slid between 2 towering reptilian mercenaries, then ducked past a group of insectoid traders arguing over shipment rights. And that's when he saw her. She stood across the marketplace near a stall glowing with bioluminescent fruits. For a moment, she seemed less like a person and more like a star that had taken human form. Tall, graceful, her skin shimmered the color of twilight nebulae, violet indigo flecks of silver swirling beneath the surface. Her hair cascaded in white braids interwoven with filaments of living starlight, glowing faintly with each breath. But it was her eyes that stopped Ronan dead in his tracks. Golden irises, vertical pupils that narrowed and widened as they found his. It felt as though the universe itself tilted, balancing on the edge of those eyes. Ronan's carefully cultivated instinct to look away to keep walking failed him. For a fraction of a second he stared. The effect was instantaneous. "Oh, blessed be," croaked a wizened creature nearby. It clapped its many hands together, eyes bulging with excitement. He looked at what Ronan stammered, tearing his gaze away. The purple-skinned woman tilted her head, regarding him with a curious expression he couldn't quite read. "The marriage is sealed," the old creature bellowed. "A human has finally married the Princess of Folan." What? Ronan's voice cracked. The what of who now? The crowd stirred, whispers echoing in dozens of tongues. Merchants peered over their stalls, customers pointed, and several alien children burst into delighted laughter. The noise swelled like an oncoming storm. The woman stepped forward. Her voice when she spoke was harmonious, layered with an almost musical resonance that sent chills down Ronan's spine. "Congratulations," she said. "I am Tina of House Benji, and you human have just become my husband." For one long second, Ronan's brain simply refused to process. Husband. Princess. What the hell kind of local superstition was this? Then instinct kicked in. Ronan did the only thing a self-respecting smuggler could do. He ran. His boots hammered against the metal flooring, carrying him through twisting corridors. He dodged a cart of steaming noodles, vaulted over a fallen drunk, shoved past a group of reptilians who swore at him in languages he didn't understand. His heart pounded in his ears, sweat already slick on his palms. Behind him there was no sound of pursuit, which somehow made him even more nervous. He burst through a set of hydraulic doors into another marketplace, lungs burning. He slowed just enough to glance over his shoulder, empty. "Pardon me," said a melodious voice in front of him. Ronan skidded to a stop. There she was, standing calmly before a display of glowing fruits, as though she had been waiting all along. She plucked a luminous blue fruit from the pile and took a delicate bite, juice gleaming against her violet lips. "Impossible," Ronan muttered, backing away. "How did you—" "The quantum displacement systems of my people are quite efficient," Tina replied smoothly. She held out the fruit as if offering it. "Would you like one? They are quite good for stamina. You'll need it considering all this running." "I listen," Ronan stammered, retreating another step. "There's been a mistake. I didn't agree to any marriage." "Eye contact is consent among my people," she said, stepping closer with a grace that seemed both natural and utterly alien. "It is a biological imperative. The genetic bond has already begun forming." "Genetic what now?" The crowd around them had begun to gather, forming a loose ring. Ronan noticed that many of the aliens flinched or recoiled when they looked directly at Tina. To them, she was monstrous. Yet to him, she was the most beautiful creature he had ever laid eyes on. "You're confused," Tina said gently. "Understandable. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private." "No offense," Ronan blurted, "but I've got a very important meeting with a Kraken dealer about a certain stolen ancestral sphere." Her smile widened, amused. "Yes, I know all about that. Unfortunately, he was arrested 20 minutes ago. Something about outstanding warrants in 3 systems." Ronan's hand shot instinctively to the case at his hip. "How do you know about—" "I know many things, husband," Tina replied, "including 7 different ways to disable a human nervous system with a single touch." Her grip tightened suddenly on his arm. "Now hold on tight, dear husband. Wait, what are you?" The world dissolved into purple haze. Reality folded in on itself. Ronan's stomach lurched, and when his vision cleared, he was standing in what looked like a luxury suite high above the station. Panoramic windows revealed the sprawling arms of Omega-7, its lights glimmering like a star field. Tina released his arm and smiled. "Much better. Now we can talk properly." Ronan staggered to the nearest chair, still fighting nausea. He glared at her words, tumbling out in disbelief. What the hell just happened? Ronan sat heavily in the chair, chest heaving, trying to anchor himself to something solid. The room tilted not because of the quantum jump, but because his entire reality had just been bent into an impossible shape. One moment he'd been a smuggler on Omega-7, the next he was apparently married to a violet-skinned alien princess. "Explain," he demanded, pressing both palms against his knees as if the pressure would stop the dizziness. Tina's golden eyes glowed faintly in the ambient light of the suite. She moved with casual elegance to a console near the panoramic window, her fingers dancing across a holographic display. "I told you, Among my people, the Folan eye contact is not trivial. It initiates a bond. Once established, it is irreversible. Eye contact, Ronan scoffed. Lady, if humans married every time we looked at someone, half the galaxy would be on honeymoon. Her lips curved in amusement. Humans flirt with glances, yes. For Folan, it is far deeper. Our genetic code is wired with quantum entanglement patterns. When two gazes align under the right resonance, a biological imperative takes hold. The bond begins to form. Bond, Ronan repeated, feeling his stomach knot. Genetic integration, she said simply. Your cells are already responding, slowly but inevitably. You and I are now linked at the quantum level, heart, mind, body woven together. Ronan stared slack-jawed. That's insane. Perhaps, but also very real. He stood abruptly, pacing the length of the suite. No, absolutely not. I didn't sign up for this. I'm not anyone's husband, let alone some cursed princess with... He froze. Wait, why did some of those aliens back in the market recoil from you? They looked at you like you were... He trailed off, unwilling to say the word. Tina's smile faltered. For a fraction of a second, something raw flickered in her gaze, pain ancient and sharp, before she masked it with composure. Because to them I am hideous, she said quietly. Ronan blinked. Come again? You see me as I am meant to be, Tina continued. But to others, the curse alters their perception. They see a monster, shifting, grotesque, ever-changing. She gestured toward the window where the stars glimmered like cold diamonds. It was a punishment inflicted upon me long ago, a betrayal, a cruel experiment in quantum manipulation. Now every alien species perceives me as an abomination. Every species except yours. Ronan's mind reeled. So humans are immune, not immune, aligned differently. Human consciousness operates on a separate quantum wavelength. You perceive truth where others see distortion. That is why when you looked at me, the bond sealed. This is crazy, Ronan muttered. He rubbed his temples. I'm a smuggler, not whatever the hell this is. I've got deals, debts, contacts waiting. I don't have time to play space prince. You underestimate the situation, Tina said. Her voice, though soft, carried an edge of command. Your life has already changed. Running is pointless. As if on cue, the suite's door chimed. A monitor flickered to life, revealing a group of imposing Folan in ceremonial armor. At their head stood a tall figure draped in ornate robes, his form shifting subtly as if reality itself struggled to pin him down. His face blurred between beauty and horror depending on the angle of the light. Father, Tina murmured. The door hissed open. The delegation swept inside, filling the room with a palpable aura of authority. The robed figure's many-layered voice echoed from multiple throats at once. Daughter, would you care to explain why you have married a human criminal? Criminal is such a harsh word, Tina replied brightly. I prefer the term ethically flexible entrepreneur. Ronan, still standing, raised a tentative hand. Hi, Ronan Todd. Sorry about the whole accidental marriage thing. It's a cultural misunderstanding. If we could just annul... No! The word thundered from every mouth in the room simultaneously. The human is wanted in 17 systems, declared a crystalline-skinned official, slamming a holographic dossier onto the table. Artifact theft, smuggling, confidence schemes. 23 systems actually, Ronan corrected before he could stop himself. When everyone turned to stare at him, he shrugged. If we're being technical, Tina beamed. See, he's honest about his dishonesty. That's practically a virtue. Her father's shifting features twisted into something like a scowl. This is about that human from before, isn't it? The one who... This has nothing to do with him. Tina snapped, her golden eyes flashing with sudden heat. For the first time, Ronan glimpsed the steel beneath her charm. She wasn't just playful, she was dangerous. The chamber erupted into overlapping voices, officials shouting in 3 different languages about treaties, genetic protocols, and interspecies taboos. Ronan caught fragments, Council of Elders, unprecedented annulment required, but none of it made sense. Finally, Tina raised her hand. Her voice cut cleanly through the chaos. According to Article 7 of the Galactic Marriage Accords, Section 12, subsection Gamma, all Folan marriages are immediately binding and irreversible once the genetic bond begins forming, which it has. Unless, of course, you suggest we ignore our most sacred traditions. Her father's shifting visage hardened. Daughter, you cannot intend to honor such traditions with a human thief. Why not? Tina arched an elegant brow. Would you prefer the council of elders believe that we twist laws when inconvenient? Shall I summon them now and let them decide whether we value honor or convenience? A tense silence followed. Ronan felt like he was watching a dangerous game of cosmic chess, except he was the pawn everyone argued over. His legs still wobbled from the quantum jump, but his instincts screamed that whatever game Tina was playing, she had already planned several moves ahead. Before anyone could speak further, the door chimed again. Another figure entered, a woman in full military garb, tall and elegant, her movements precise as a blade. Her presence was commanding, radiating authority. Mother Tina said warmly. Perfect timing, her mother replied. She scanned the room, her golden eyes narrowing as they fell on Ronan. So, this is the human who caught my daughter's eye. Ronan raised a hand weakly. Hi again. Still sorry about the marriage thing. Tina's mother produced a device that resembled both a scanner and a weapon. She studied its display. Fascinating. The bond has already reached 15% integration. Is that bad? Ronan asked nervously. It is extraordinary, she answered. Compatibility usually takes days, for you 2 hours. Tina's lips curved into a predatory smile. It means, dear husband, that we are especially well matched. Her father made a grinding noise, part growl, part distortion. This is unprecedented. A human bonded to a fallen princess. Think of the diplomatic chaos. Or the diplomatic opportunity Tina countered. A permanent alliance with humanity, starting with our two families. Starting with a smuggler, her father spat. A successful smuggler, her mother mused. One with connections across the galaxy. That could be useful. The debate swirled around Ronan like a storm. He felt less like a person and more like contraband being inspected at auction. His hand brushed against the case strapped to his hip. The artifact inside suddenly seemed like the least of his problems. I hate to interrupt, he said loudly, but I do have pressing business. That little crystalline sphere isn't going to sell itself. Oh, the ancestral sphere. Tina interrupted, her tone casual. Yes, about that. Ronan froze. How do you? Because I'm the one who arranged for you to steal it, Tina said, smiling radiantly. The room went utterly silent. You what? Ronan croaked. She stepped closer, her golden eyes gleaming with silver flecks. Did you really think it was coincidence that you found that artifact on that world at that time? No, my dear husband. Every step has led you here. To me. Ronan's throat went dry. But why? Because I needed someone clever enough to steal it, resourceful enough to survive with it, and human enough to see me as I truly am. And now, she placed a hand gently against his chest. Now you are mine. Ronan swallowed hard, his smuggler's instincts screaming to run. But deep down, another voice whispered something far more dangerous. He was intrigued. Ronan couldn't breathe. Not from the thin, recycled air of Omega-7, not from the nausea of quantum displacement, but from the sheer audacity of Tina's revelation. She had orchestrated everything: his theft of the crystalline sphere, his desperate run from Centon patrols, even his arrival here. You're insane, he muttered, finally trying to shake her hand off his chest. You set me up. I positioned you, Tina corrected smoothly, her voice a purr that somehow carried over the din of the arguing delegation. Do not mistake manipulation for foresight, husband. I needed someone like you. And the galaxy has precious few candidates. Her father's multiform face darkened. Daughter, this game of yours endangers us all. Already whispers spread. If word reaches the council, then let them hear. Tina snapped, her patience thinning. Let them see that the Folans still honor tradition even when inconvenient. Or would you prefer they learn our laws are nothing but theater? The officials muttered among themselves, crystalline voices clashing with metallic growls. Ronan seized the moment, edging toward the door, calculating distance, speed obstacles, always planning the escape. He never reached it. The door exploded inward, showering shards of alloy into the suite. Black-armored soldiers stormed inside, weapons humming with lethal charge. Their armor bore no crest, no insignia. Mercenaries. At their center strode a tall figure clad in advanced battle gear, his helmet smooth and faceless, until it retracted, revealing sharp aristocratic features. His eyes glowed faintly with cybernetic augmentation. Well, well, the man said, his voice cultured mocking. I arrived just in time for the family reunion. Tina's golden eyes hardened. Victor. The name dropped like a weight into Ronan's gut. He didn't know the history, but he knew a rival when he saw one. And not just any rival, this was a man Tina once loved. Still dramatic as ever, Tina said coldly. And you're still reckless, Victor replied, his gaze sliding toward Ronan with thinly veiled contempt. A human really, Tina? You've fallen far. Funny, Ronan shot back before he could stop himself. She seems to have fallen right into my lap. Victor's lip curled. Charming, but irrelevant. Hand over the sphere thief and I may let you live. Ronan clutched the case reflexively. Yeah, I've heard that line before. Usually right before someone shoots me. Victor chuckled a low, humorless sound. Then perhaps I should skip the pretense. He raised a hand and his soldiers leveled their rifles. Don't, Tina warned, stepping between them. This is not your battlefield. Victor's expression shifted to something cruel. You still don't understand, do you? Everything is my battlefield. His gaze flickered, and for a split second, Ronan thought he saw genuine hurt buried beneath the arrogance. Then it vanished, replaced by cold calculation. Why, Ronan asked suddenly. Why curse her? Why make her people see her as a monster? Victor smiled thin and sharp. Because she chose defiance over loyalty. Because she thought she could love without consequence. So I showed her the truth that beauty is fragile and perception is power. Strip away one and the other crumbles. Ronan's stomach twisted. This wasn't just science. This was vengeance obsession dressed in equations. Get out, Tina snarled, her voice layered with resonance that made the air vibrate. For a moment, everyone, mercenaries included, hesitated as though her command rewrote reality itself. Then Victor snapped his fingers. Chaos erupted. Energy bolts seared through the suite, shredding furniture, scorching walls. Folan officials dove for cover, their forms blurring grotesquely under stress. Ronan drew his blaster, firing on instinct, the weapon bucking against his palm. He wasn't a soldier, but years of survival taught him where to aim knees, visors, power packs. Soldiers fell, sparks erupting from shattered armor. Move! Tina grabbed his arm, dragging him toward a side exit. They sprinted through smoke and screaming alarms, Victor's laughter echoing behind them. Corridors blurred. Ronan's pulse thundered. He caught glimpses of the station beyond merchants, scattering guards clashing with mercenaries, the once orderly chaos of Omega-7 dissolving into pure anarchy. They burst into a wide marketplace, neon lights flashing across terrified faces. The crowd parted in panic as more armored soldiers stormed in, weapons raised. Tina moved like liquid fire. She disarmed one mercenary with a flick of her wrist, shattered another's helmet with an elbow strike. Her movements were graceful, lethal, almost hypnotic. Ronan tried to keep up, firing shots that barely slowed their pursuers. Left, Tina shouted. They veered into an alley lined with flickering holosigns. Ronan's boots slipped on spilled synth oil, nearly toppling him. He felt her steadying hand even as she pulled him forward. Behind them, a mercenary barked into comms. Target secured with human asset. Locked down perimeter. Asset, Ronan panted. Do I look like an asset to you? To some, Tina said, eyes gleaming. You're priceless. Yeah, then why do I feel like a liability? Because you haven't stopped running long enough to see otherwise. Before Ronan could answer, the alley erupted in gunfire. They dove behind a stack of crates as plasma bolts scorched the walls. The heat singed Ronan's jacket, filling the air with the stench of burning leather. This is insane, he shouted over the noise. I came here to make a deal, not star in a war. Welcome to my life, Tina replied dryly. A mercenary lunged around the crates. Ronan reacted without thinking, jamming the barrel of his blaster into the man's visor and pulling the trigger. The soldier collapsed, armor sizzling. Ronan blinked at the smoking body. Tina arched an eyebrow. See, priceless. Don't get used to it, Ronan muttered, hard hammering. A sudden explosion rocked the alley, throwing them both to the ground. Dust rained from above as metal beams groaned. Through the haze, Victor emerged, flanked by more soldiers, his armor gleaming with menace. You can't run forever, he called, voice carrying effortlessly over the chaos. The sphere is mine. And you, Tina, you will learn humility before this ends. Ronan's instincts screamed at him. Run now, leave her, save yourself. That was survival, the smuggler's creed. But his feet didn't move. Instead, he found himself stepping in front of Tina, blaster raised. Victor laughed, genuine amusement flickering in his augmented eyes. Oh, how charming. The thief thinks he can play hero. Ronan swallowed, forcing steel into his voice. Not a hero, just stubborn. Then you'll die stubborn. Victor raised his weapon. But before he could fire, Tina's hand pressed against Ronan's chest again. The world folded into purple haze. When his vision cleared, they were elsewhere, another chamber quieter, lit by soft starlight. Ronan staggered, clutching his knees, bile rising in his throat. Enough running, he snapped, his voice ragged. What the hell is going on? Who is that bastard, really? Tina stood silently for a moment, her silhouette outlined against the viewport. Then she spoke, voice low and edged with old hurt. He was once my betrothed, chosen by my father to unite our houses. Brilliant, ambitious, and utterly without conscience. I defied him. I loved him once, but I would not be his tool, so he cursed me, turned me into a weapon, a warning, to make me monstrous in the eyes of my own people. She turned her gaze, locking onto Ronan's. And now he wants the sphere, because within it lies the key to undoing what he did, or to amplifying it across the galaxy. Ronan's grip tightened on the case at his hip. So what, you used me as bait? As delivery boy, I used you, Tina admitted without shame, because you were clever enough to steal it, reckless enough to survive, and human enough to see me as I truly am. You were the only one who could. Ronan wanted to rage, to curse her, to demand she let him go, but the words stuck in his throat, because the truth burning behind all the manipulation was that she was right, and that terrified him more than Victor's army ever could. The hum of the engines was steady, like a heartbeat echoing through the bones of the ship. Ronan leaned back against the bulkhead of the cabin arms, crossed, forcing his body to relax, though every instinct screamed otherwise. His ship, the Stellar Chance, had been swallowed into the docking bay of Tina's vessel like a fish gulped down by a leviathan. Her ship was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Sleek, iridescent hull plating that shimmered with shifting colors. Corridors lined with panels that pulsed faintly as if the vessel itself were alive. It wasn't full and standard tech, it was something older, something tuned to her personal signature. Even the air carried a faint ozone tang mixed with floral undertones. He didn't like it. Too polished, too alien, too much hers. You're sulking, Tina observed, gliding into the cabin. She had changed from her ceremonial dress into a simple tunic and trousers, though somehow she made the practical outfit look regal. It doesn't suit you, husband. Don't call me that, Ronan said sharply. Her lips quirked. But it's true. Denying it doesn't alter the quantum bond already forming between us. She tapped her temple. I can feel it, you know. Threads weaving tighter with every hour. Great. So you've hijacked my biology along with my social life. Hijacked. She tilted her head, studying him with those golden eyes. You make it sound like a crime. Yet it was your gaze that sealed it. Your choice, even if you didn't realize it. Ronan pushed away from the wall, pacing the cabin. Let's be clear. My choice was to sell an artifact, pay off debts, and maybe not die broke. Instead, I'm shackled to a princess who drags an army's curses and deranged ex-lovers everywhere she goes. She smiled, utterly unbothered. A dramatic way of admitting you're in over your head. He jabbed a finger at her. I don't trust you. Not your people, not your laws, and definitely not this convenient fairy tale about curses and destiny. You don't have to trust me, Tina replied softly, almost kindly. But you will have to work with me, because Victor will not stop. And the only thing standing between him and the galaxy learning to see monsters everywhere, she gestured to herself, is us. The word hung heavy in the air, us. Ronan turned away, glaring out the viewport. Stars smeared by as the ship slipped into faster-than-light transit. Us. He wasn't sure he liked the sound of it. They emerged hours later at the edge of a dying red giant star. A station hung in perpetual twilight built into the shell of a hollowed asteroid shadow station. No official maps listed it, but anyone who moved in the underworld knew the name. Here, secrets were currency and morality was an infection quickly treated by violence. Ronan knew it well. He'd made more than one desperate deal in those neon-lit corridors. As they approached, he watched in disbelief while Tina guided the ship through customs. The Folan delegation ships had once forced even hardened smugglers to kneel, and Tina carried the same authority in her voice. Security officers who usually strip-searched him until they found excuses to add bribes now practically bowed, scanning his ID once before waving them through. "The perks of being my husband," Tina whispered, amused at his expression. He scowled. "Diplomatic immunity. Convenient. Almost makes me want to stay married." "Almost," her voice teased. "Don't be coy, Ronan. You're beginning to enjoy this." Inside Shadow Station, the air was heavy with smoke and tension. Traders shouted in open markets. A troupe of biomechanical dancers twisted their limbs to discordant music. Ronan felt the old itch of survival, the constant need to watch exits to keep one hand near his blaster. Tina, by contrast, walked through the chaos like she owned it. Merchants who would have gutted Ronan for a credit smiled nervously and cleared paths for her. Even those who saw her distorted form couldn't seem to defy her presence. "You do realize," Ronan muttered as he followed her down a flickering corridor, "that every step I take with you paints a bigger target on my back." "That implies you weren't already marked," Tina replied smoothly. 17 systems want you dead or in chains. Victor only accelerated the inevitable. Comforting. They rounded a corner into a quieter sector far from the shouting markets. Tina stopped before a plain wall. She pressed her palm against it, and glowing sigils appeared. The metal shimmered and slid aside, revealing a hidden chamber filled with humming machinery. "What is this?" Ronan asked warily. "The place where my curse began," she answered. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed something darker. Ronan stepped inside cautiously. The chamber reeked of ozone and old sorrow. Strange devices lined the walls, tangled wires and conduits, leading to a central platform. For a moment, his smuggler's eye recognized what it was: not weapons, but research. Experimental, dangerous research. "Victor's lab," Ronan guessed. Once Tina said, "He tested his theories here, on me." Ronan's stomach twisted. "And you let him?" "I loved him," she admitted quietly. "Or thought I did. He promised unity, revolution, a brighter, fallen future. Instead, he turned me into proof of his arrogance. He bound my genetic code to quantum distortions so that none of my people could ever see me as whole again." She touched one of the machines, her hand trembling ever so slightly. "He made me a weapon, a living symbol of fear." Ronan swallowed hard. "And humans were the loophole." "Yes, you perceive differently. You see me as I am, not as he twisted me to be." The weight of her words pressed on him. He wanted to mock, to distance himself, but he couldn't. Because when he looked at her, all he saw was breathtaking grace and the sharp mind of someone who refused to break. "And the sphere?" he asked, forcing the subject back to business. "The key," she said, or so Victor believed. "It contains the access codes to his primary research facility. With it, we can undo what he did, or destroy everything if it falls into his hands." Ronan rubbed his jaw. "So let me guess. You want me to help break in, fight our way through, grab the cure, and live happily ever after?" Tina's lips curved. "Something like that." He shook his head. "You're insane. And yet you haven't left," she replied softly. He hated that she was right. Later, back aboard the ship, Ronan sat alone in his quarters. Luxurious by his standards, far too clean, too soft. He pulled his personal tablet from his jacket, fingers flying as he activated an encrypted channel. A name popped up. An old contact on Shadow Station. Someone who owed him favors. Someone who whispered about experimental body transfers. "Consciousness migration," Ronan muttered as he read the data. A way to shift his entire mind into a new genetic template. If the Folan bond was truly genetic, then maybe, just maybe, he could slip free of it. A grin tugged at his lips. Can't maintain a marriage bond if you're not in your original body. He almost laughed at the brilliance. Almost. Until a soft knock came at his door. "Still awake, husband?" Tina's voice floated through the corridor, gentle, knowing. Ronan hid the tablet quickly, forcing casualness into his tone. "Just getting some rest." Liar. The door slid open without waiting for permission. She stepped inside, leaning against the frame, her casual outfit somehow more dangerous than her finery. "You're planning something." "What makes you say that?" "Because that's what I'd be doing," she replied, amused. "You know, most men would be thrilled to suddenly find themselves married to a princess." "Most men are idiots," Ronan shot back. She laughed, a genuine melodic laugh that twisted something in his chest. "True, that's why I picked you instead." "You keep saying that," he muttered, "but you still haven't explained why." "Maybe I just have a weakness for clever thieves with trust issues." She stepped closer, golden eyes gleaming. Or maybe I chose you because you were the first person in 3 centuries who looked at me and then ran. That's not usually a compliment, Ronan said, unsettled. In my world, it's refreshing. She touched his cheek, her fingers cool. Get some rest, Ronan. You'll need your wits tomorrow. She turned to leave, pausing in the doorway. Oh, and the body-switching plan you're considering. It won't work. The bond isn't just DNA, it's quantum entanglement. You'd have to transfer every quantum state of your consciousness. Impossible even for Shadow Station. Ronan froze. How did you? She winked. Because I picked you for your cleverness. Sweet dreams, husband. The door slid shut, leaving him alone with the fading scent of ozone and flowers. Ronan exhaled shakily. Well, he muttered, there's always plan B. Shadow Station faded behind them in a trail of fractured light as Tina's vessel slipped once more into hyperspace. Ronan stood at the viewport, arms crossed, watching stars stretch into blinding lines. His mind wasn't on the beauty of space, though it was on the weight of the crystalline sphere pressed tight against his hip. It wasn't just loot anymore. It wasn't just a bargaining chip. It was the key to something bigger, something Victor would kill them both to reclaim. And the insane part, Ronan had begun to wonder if maybe Tina was right. The thought unsettled him more than the danger. Tina entered the bridge, her presence filling the space like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. She wore a combat harness, now golden straps gleaming faintly against violet skin. A sidearm rested at her hip, wickedly curved, clearly Folan make. She looked less like a princess and more like a general, ready for war. We're approaching Victor's primary research facility, she announced, orbiting the corpse of a collapsed star. He chose the location for its unstable energy fields. Perfect camouflage. Ronan raised a brow. Romantic hideout. He has always been dramatic, Tina said coolly. And paranoid. The facility will be heavily guarded. Of course it will, Ronan muttered. Why break into a forgotten archive when you can storm a fortress? Her lips quirked. You prefer an easy job. I prefer surviving one. The ship emerged from hyperspace into eerie silence. Before them, the shattered husk of a dead star glowed faintly red plasma, bleeding into space like the embers of a dying fire. Orbiting in its corona was the facility, massive, angular, and bristling with towers. Energy shields flickered around it, bending light like a mirage. Ronan whistled. Victor builds his labs like palaces. Tina's jaw tightened. Palaces of cruelty. She guided the vessel toward a blind spot in the shields. Ronan braced himself as alarms whispered warnings of detection. The ship slid through camouflage by systems he didn't pretend to understand. Landing Bay 4, Tina said, eyes fixed on the display. Minimal traffic. We'll enter through there. Minimal, Ronan echoed. I was hoping for none. They landed without incident, but the hangar was anything but deserted. Rows of mercenary troops patrolled catwalks above their armor, glinting in the artificial light. Cargo crates littered the deck, automated loaders humming as they shifted supplies. Ronan swallowed hard. Minimal traffic, huh? Remind me never to see what busy looks like. Tina ignored him. She stepped down the ramp with regal confidence, head high as though she belonged. Ronan followed, trying to mimic her stride, though every nerve screamed that he was a target painted in neon. 2 guards approached, rifles raised. Before they could speak, Tina flicked her wrist. A shimmer of violet light rippled outward, and both soldiers collapsed unconscious. Ronan blinked. You could have led with that. Limited range, she replied. Best not to rely on it too often. They moved deeper into the facility, weaving through corridors of cold alloy. Ronan's eyes darted constantly, marking vents, bulkheads, possible exits. His pulse hammered. Every shadow felt like a trap. Finally, they reached the central laboratory. Doors slid open with a hiss, revealing a cavernous chamber dominated by machinery. Consoles pulsed with unreadable data. Energy conduits crisscrossed the walls, humming with unstable power. And in the center, atop a raised platform, stood Victor. He was waiting. Darling, Victor said, his voice amplified by the room's acoustics. How thoughtful of you to bring my sphere home, and with a pet human in tow. Quaint. Ronan bristled. This pet bites. Victor smirked. We'll see, he gestured to his soldiers. Take them. The mercenaries advanced, weapons raised. Ronan's instinct screamed. He didn't aim at the soldiers. He didn't even aim at Victor. He aimed at a console near the wall, one that hummed with the telltale rhythm of a power regulator. He fired. The blast exploded in sparks, cascading energy arcs racing across conduits. Lights flickered, alarms shrieked, and the entire facility shuddered. Victor snarled, "You fool, do you know what you've done?" "Made a distraction," Ronan shot back. "Created a chain reaction." Tina corrected, her golden eyes blazing. "Containment fields collapsing, systems failing, everything's about to reset." "Reset," Ronan asked, ducking behind a console as plasma bolts screamed past. "Including me," she said with a fierce smile. She moved with lethal grace, disarming 2 guards in seconds, her body a blur of strikes and counterstrikes. Ronan fired at another, his blaster recoil propelling him into cover. Smoke filled the chamber, punctuated by the crackle of failing machinery. Victor roared, slamming his hands against controls, desperate to stabilize the system. "You'll destroy years of research." "That's the idea," Tina spat, vaulting onto the platform to face him. He drew a weapon, sleek and humming with ominous energy. He leveled it at her, eyes burning with rage. "If I can't have the research, no one will." Ronan didn't think. He hurled himself forward, tackling Victor, just as the weapons discharged. The blast went wide, striking a bank of regulators. The explosion tore through the lab, flinging them across the platform. Tina, Ronan shouted, ears ringing. He looked up and froze. She stood bathed in a halo of unstable energy, her form flickering. For an instant, he saw what others always had, a shifting nightmare of limbs in distortion, grotesque and alien. Then it shattered like glass, replaced by radiance. The curse faltered, breaking apart under the facility's collapse. She was magnificent, and for the first time, even the guards could see it. Their weapons wavered, their eyes wide with awe instead of fear. Victor stared in horror. "No, what have you done?" "Broken your curse," Tina said simply, her voice echoing like thunder. "With help from someone who saw me truly all along." The facility groaned as systems failed completely. Red lights bathed the chamber, sirens wailing. Guards fled, abandoning their posts as ceilings cracked and walls split. Victor staggered to his feet, hatred twisting his features. "You've ruined everything." "No," Tina said, her golden gaze fierce. "I fixed everything." The containment field surged, cutting Ronan off from the platform. He slammed his fists against the barrier, shouting her name. "Ready to go, husband?" She called, her smile soft amid the chaos. "1 second," Ronan growled. He turned to Victor, who was still clutching his weapon, trembling with fury. "You know, for a genius scientist, you made a basic mistake." Victor sneered. "And what's that?" "Never curse a woman who's smarter than you." Ronan's fist connected with Victor's jaw, dropping him cold. "Especially if she's going to marry a thief." The containment field dropped. Tina grabbed Ronan's arm. "My hero," she whispered with a smirk. "Now hold on tight." The world dissolved into violet light, just as the facility imploded, decades of twisted science vanishing in fire and silence. They rematerialized aboard Tina's ship, alarms blaring as debris from the explosion rippled across sensors. Through the viewport, Ronan watched the facility collapse into itself, swallowed by the dead star's gravity. Well, he said, trying to catch his breath, that escalated quickly. Tina's smile was fierce and beautiful. "The council will demand answers. Victor is defeated, but his shadow lingers. We are not safe yet." Ronan chuckled weakly. "Safe? I don't even remember what that feels like." She touched his cheek, her golden eyes soft now. "Get used to it, husband. Our fight is just beginning." 3 weeks later, Ronan Todd stood in the grand crystalline hall of the Folan High Council and wondered for the 1,000th time how the hell his life had come to this. The hall itself was breathtaking, spires of translucent crystal arched overhead, refracting light into cascading rainbows. Alien dignitaries from across the galaxy filled the seats, their voices blending into a low, constant murmur. Security was tighter than anything Ronan had ever seen, guards at every archway, scanning fields, humming with invisible energy weapons primed. And at the center of it all, resting upon a pedestal carved from pure starlight crystal, sat the imperial crown of Folan, an ancient artifact, priceless and holy, displayed as a symbol of blessing for the ceremony. To Ronan, it looked less like a blessing and more like the most tempting score of his career. Beside him, radiant in a gown woven of living light, Tina stood tall and unyielding. The curse was gone now, shattered in Victor's ruined lab. The galaxy saw her beauty at last. No more distortions, no more horror. Yet Ronan thought she had always looked exactly the same. She leaned close, her golden eyes glinting with mischief. Nervous husband, about the armed guards, the council of alien overlords, and the fact that half this room still wants me arrested. Nah, I'm fine. She smirked. Good. Then you're ready. Ready for what he muttered. The distraction, she whispered. Before he could reply, the ceremony began. A priestess of the council stepped forward, her crystalline robes shimmering as she raised her hands. We gather to witness the union of Princess Tina of House Benji and her chosen consort, the human Ronan Todd. The crowd shifted uneasily. Whispers rippled through the chamber, disbelief, scandal, outrage. The counselors themselves looked torn between fury and resignation. Ronan forced a grin. Guess they're not thrilled about the in-law situation. Tina's hand brushed his. Ignore them. They cannot break what's already bound. The priestess began the traditional vows, her voice echoing like a hymn. Ronan only half listened. His eyes darted constantly to the imperial crown. Every instinct screamed opportunity. Every nerve reminded him this was suicide. And then just as the vows reached their crescendo, the lights flickered. A commotion erupted at the far end of the hall. Guards scrambled, alarms blared, and a burst of smoke filled the chamber. Gasps echoed as the imperial crown vanished from its pedestal in a shimmer of stolen light. Chaos consumed the hall. Officials shouted. Dignitaries surged to their feet. Security fields collapsed as guards rushed to contain the supposed thieves. And in the midst of the storm, Ronan felt Tina's hand slip into his. Time to go, she whispered. They moved swiftly, unnoticed amid the chaos. Down a side corridor through a hidden passage Tina had arranged. Ronan's heart pounded, adrenaline surging. You planned this, he hissed. Of course, she said, her smile radiant. While they chase phantoms, we have our real wedding. They slipped into a small chamber far from the pandemonium. Only a handful of trusted allies waited there. A sympathetic priestess, 2 loyal attendants, and a pair of Ronan's old smuggler contacts who looked wildly out of place amid Folan grandeur. The priestess lifted her hands. By the laws of bond and choice, by the will of tradition and the freedom of love, I bless this union. Tina turned to Ronan, her eyes softer than he had ever seen them. This is the moment, husband. No councils, no politics, no schemes, just us. Ronan's throat tightened. For once, words failed him. He simply nodded. The vows were brief, spoken in Folan, but translated in his ear implant. Promises not of obedience or duty, but of shared survival, mutual defiance, and chosen loyalty. When it was done, Tina leaned close, her lips brushing his. The kiss sealed more than a bond. It sealed a partnership forged in fire, theft, and danger. Ronan exhaled, dizzy. So, we're really doing this. We already did, Tina replied. On a side table sat the imperial crown, gleaming innocently. Ronan blinked. Wait, you actually stole it. Borrowed, Tina corrected sweetly. We'll return it, eventually. Ronan laughed, shaking his head. You're a terrible influence, says the man who stole it for me. For us, he corrected, surprising himself. Her smile warmed. Exactly. Hours later, their ship soared free of Folan space. Behind them, the council scrambled to maintain appearances, official records showing a perfectly proper royal wedding. The missing crown, an unfortunate security error the council insisted never happened. Ronan sprawled in the captain's chair of Tina's vessel boots, up a stolen bottle of Folan wine in hand. Through the viewport, the stars beckoned, vast, endless, and dangerous. Tina joined him, slipping gracefully into the seat beside his. She poured herself a glass of the shimmering wine, sipping slowly. To us, she said. To improbable marriages, Ronan added. They clinked glasses. He studied her in the starlight, the way her hair glowed like threads of silver fire, the curve of her smile both dangerous and soft. For a man who had spent his life running, lying, and surviving. The thought struck him like a plasma bolt. He didn't want to run anymore. So he said cautiously, what happens now? Now Tina leaned back, golden eyes glimmering. Now the galaxy thinks we are the perfect royal couple, which means we have access to vaults, treasures, and secrets locked away for centuries. You're suggesting a heist, she said simply. Our wedding gift to ourselves. Ronan barked a laugh. Most wives want a honeymoon. Mine wants grand larceny. Most husbands, she said, aren't master thieves who shot up a space station to break their wife's curse. He couldn't argue with that. Why me? He asked quietly, more serious now. The truth, Tina, not the bond, not the plan. Why me? Her playful mask softened. She reached out, tracing his jaw with delicate fingers. Because when you first saw me, you didn't see a princess or a curse or an opportunity. You saw something that scared you enough to run, and later when it mattered most, you stayed. That isn't romance, Ronan. That's real. His chest tightened. He pulled her close, unable to resist. So what do you say, thief? She whispered against his lips. Ready for one more job. Ronan grinned, reckless and alive. Always. Weeks later, whispers spread through the underworld of a human and a violet-skinned princess pulling off impossible heists across the stars. Some claimed they crashed weddings. Others said they stole crown's jewels and entire fleets. Officially, of course, the Folan Council denied everything. Records showed a dignified ceremony, a flawless union, a perfect alliance. But in the shadows of space, stories thrived. Of a smuggler who became a prince by accident. Of a princess cursed into monstrosity only to find freedom in the eyes of a human. Of love forged not in destiny, but in choice, and sealed by the greatest theft of all. And if you ever spotted them, her hair like living starlight, his grin sharp as a blade slipping away from a vault with treasures that should have been impossible to touch. Well, that was probably just coincidence. Probably.